The locals had warned them that the mountains above São Vicente weren't the place to wander after dark, especially not in winter when the fog clung to the cliffs like heavy wool and the laurissilva forest groaned with wind. But tourists never listened, and Daniel, Lena, Marco, and Sarah weren't the type to turn down a hike just because someone at a cafe muttered something about voices on the ridge. They were young, loud, and full of cheap poncha, and Madeira felt like the kind of place where nothing bad could possibly happen. The trail they picked, Vereda do Caldeiro Verde, wasn't supposed to be dangerous, but the weather had turned quickly. The sky over the Atlantic had gone from pink to iron, and a bank of rolling fog had climbed inland like a living thing. Daniel tightened the straps of his backpack, glancing at the others. "We should head back," he said. He hated how small his voice sounded in the widening quiet. "Relax," Marco replied, lifting his phone to film the fog-drenched cliffs. "This is amazing. Look at this. It's cinematic." Lena didn't look convinced, but Sarah grabbed her hand. "Just 10 more minutes. Then we turn around." But 10 minutes became 20 as the path narrowed and the fog swallowed everything but the faint glisten of wet stone under their boots. The laurel trees twisted overhead, dripping moisture that sounded eerily like footsteps. Daniel slowed, instinct prickling. Something felt wrong. The air was too cold. The wind too quiet. Even the birds had stopped. "Guys," he said suddenly, "listen." They stopped. Nothing. Just the muffled churn of the ocean far below. Then, faintly, something that sounded like a woman's voice. Sarah stiffened. "Did you hear that?" "It's just wind," Marco said quickly, but he lowered his camera. The voice came again, not carried by the air but rising from it, thin, strained, almost ragged. A sob. Then a whispering call that echoed as if the fog itself was speaking. Lena clenched her arms around herself. "It sounds like she's hurt." Daniel swallowed hard. He didn't believe in ghosts, but he believed in cliffs, injuries, and stupid accidents. "We need to check," he said. "If someone fell." They moved cautiously around a bend in the path, but visibility was barely 3 meters. The cliffs to their right were sheer and sharp, dropping into complete nothingness. Sarah kept whispering "hello" into the fog, receiving no answer except the occasional soft cry that made her pulse jump. Then, through the gray veil, a silhouette. A woman standing perfectly still. Barefoot. Hair stuck to her face. Clothes dripping. She wasn't facing them. She was facing the drop. "Hey!" Sarah called, stepping forward. The figure twitched violently, like someone waking from a nightmare. "Wait, Sarah, don't," Daniel warned, reaching out, but she had already taken 3 steps. The fog thinned for a moment. Just enough. The woman wasn't standing on the path. She was standing several centimeters above it, toes dangling over the void. Sarah froze, breath catching in her throat. Daniel grabbed her arm and yanked her back as the figure jerked its head around with a slow, unnatural stiffness. Her face was pale, waterlogged, eyes wide like someone who had drowned minutes ago. But what unsettled Daniel most wasn't her appearance. It was her expression. She looked relieved to see them. Desperate. Then her lips moved, barely parting. "Please, don't leave me alone up here." The fog slammed back in, swallowing her whole. The 4 friends stumbled backward as the cliff groaned with shifting wind, and the voice, now much closer, whispered right beside their ears. Daniel's first instinct was to run, but the path behind them looked no safer than the one ahead. The fog billowed thick, swallowing the trail as if the mountain itself were breathing. Lena clutched Daniel's jacket, trembling violently. "What did we just see?" she whispered. "No idea," he said, forcing himself to stay calm. But we have to move. Slowly. Don't look over the edge. Marco, usually the loudest, walked silently for once. He kept glancing back, phone raised, as though expecting the woman to reappear. I swear she wasn't standing on solid ground, he muttered. She was just hanging there. Stop talking, Sarah snapped. She wasn't trying to be rude. Her voice simply couldn't carry the weight of what they'd witnessed. We need to get out of this fog. The path curved again, this time narrowing to a ledge barely wide enough for single file. Moisture coated the stone wall on their left, trickling like cold sweat. The drop on their right felt endless. Daniel led, moving carefully, each step deliberate. Behind him came Lena, then Sarah, then Marco at the back. Halfway through the narrow stretch, the voice returned. A low, broken sob drifting through the fog. But this time it came from ahead, and behind. Sarah pressed a hand to her mouth. No, no, no. Marco spun around, camera shaking in his grip. There's someone behind us, he whispered. I swear I just saw. Daniel stopped. Marco. Eyes forward. Just keep moving. The sobbing grew louder, multiplying, as though more than one woman were crying. The sound bounced off the cliffs, shifting direction unpredictably. One moment above them, one moment below. Then, footsteps. Soft, bare, approaching rapidly. Lena inhaled sharply. She's coming. Daniel didn't turn. He couldn't. Something told him not to look. He focused on every slow, careful step, anchoring himself to the physical world. Rock, cold air, damp moss beneath his fingers. But the footsteps grew louder, almost right behind Marco. Marco's breath quickened. Guys, she's close. I can hear her breathing. Sarah let out a shaking whimper. Please keep moving. Just when the path widened again, Marco yelled. Instinct made Daniel twist to look, and instantly regret it. The floating woman stood behind Marco, inches from his back. Her face was contorted not in malice but agony, as though she were begging him for rescue. Her fingers trembled as they reached for his shoulder, and passed through him. Marco gasped and stumbled forward, nearly slipping over the edge. Sarah grabbed his hoodie and hauled him back. Don't fall. Move. The woman's mouth opened wider, wider, as if she were trying to scream, but something held the sound inside her. Her lips cracked from the strain. Finally, the scream burst out, not loud, but painfully sharp, a sound that sliced through the fog and pierced Daniel's nerves. Then she was gone again. They ran. For the first time, Daniel didn't care about the cliff or the slick rocks. Fear propelled them. The path sloped downward, twisting through dense trees. The fog thinned slightly, enough for them to see several meters ahead. Not enough to feel safe. They stopped only when they reached a fork, one path leading down toward the valley, another veering upward. Marco bent forward, gasping. I recorded her, he wheezed. I think I got her on camera. Delete it, Lena demanded. Just delete it. Sarah shook her head violently. No, don't touch anything. We don't even know if. A sound drifted through the trees. Splashing, as if someone were walking in shallow water. But there was no water nearby. Daniel exhaled shakily. We need to choose a path. Now. Then, from the fog behind them. Please, don't leave me. Daniel's lungs burned as he scanned the forked paths. Downhill meant returning toward São Vicente. Uphill meant deeper into the mountains, toward the old levadas carved into the cliffs. Under normal circumstances, the choice was obvious. But nothing about this night was normal. The splashing sounds were getting louder, too steady to be rain, too rhythmic to be an animal. Marco pointed downhill. "We go back. We have to." Sarah grabbed his wrist. "What if she's blocking the way? What if she's been leading us in circles this whole time?" "We haven't been walking long enough to get lost," Marco snapped. But they all knew that wasn't true anymore. The fog didn't move like normal fog. It clung and folded and shifted with an intelligence Daniel didn't want to think about. He chose the downward path anyway, not because it felt safer, but because it meant heading toward people, lights, rationality. Or so he hoped. They moved quickly but carefully, trying not to slip on the damp stones. The splashing followed, sometimes behind, sometimes ahead, sometimes off to the left among the dripping laurels where no water should be. Daniel felt his throat tighten each time it changed direction. They weren't alone. They were being kept close. Lena's voice cracked. "Why is there water? We're on a ridge. There is no water here." "There might be small streams," Sarah whispered, though she didn't sound convinced. Marco kept checking his phone, shining its flashlight along the ground. "It's dry," he said. "Look. Dry. There's nothing." Seconds later, the splashing grew so loud it seemed to be right behind them. They froze. Daniel turned slowly, flashlight trembling in his hands. The path behind them was empty, but the sound kept going, like invisible feet pacing through an invisible pool. Then something cold slid under Daniel's boot. He jerked his foot back. A thin film of water was seeping across the stones, rippling as though disturbed by someone he couldn't see. Lena choked out a sob. "Stop. Please stop." The water vanished. Not absorbed. Not trickled away. It simply wasn't there anymore. Daniel's voice came out rough. "Keep moving." They hurried downhill. The trees parted occasionally, revealing jagged silhouettes of cliffs plunging into darkness. The ocean wind reached them in faint gusts, smelling of salt and distance. For a moment, Daniel dared to hope. Then Sarah stopped dead. A narrow stone tunnel loomed ahead, one of the old Levada passages, only a few meters long, but completely unlit, wet, echoing. "I'm not going in there," she whispered. Daniel scanned the surroundings. The path clung to the cliffside here. There was no way around except through the tunnel. "We don't have a choice," he said gently. Marco swallowed hard. "Let's just get it over with." They stepped inside. Their lights reflected off slick stone walls, forming long trembling shadows. The air smelled of moss, cold and stale. The sound of their footsteps echoed strangely, doubling, as though another set of steps trailed them half a second behind. Halfway through, Sarah gasped. "Something touched me." Lena whirled around. "Where?" "Behind my leg." Daniel raised his flashlight. A wet footprint appeared on the stone floor. Another. Advancing toward them. Marco's voice broke. "Run!" They bolted out the other side of the tunnel, lungs burning, hearts pounding. The path widened into a small terrace overlooking the valley. A faint glow of lights flickered far below. Houses. Civilization. Relief washed over them, until they noticed the figure standing on the terrace. Back turned. Dripping. Barefoot. The drowned woman. Daniel stopped so abruptly the others collided into him. The woman tilted her head slowly, painfully, as if the movement fought against the laws of bone. Then she spoke. "You finally came back for me." Daniel's breath caught in his chest. The woman stood perfectly still on the terrace, her soaked dress clinging to her thin frame, her hair plastered over her face. Water dripped from her fingertips, pattering gently onto the stone, forming a darkening circle around her feet. Yet the terrace was dry. It hadn't rained in hours. Sarah whispered, "We didn't come back. We don't know you." The woman shuddered, a convulsion running through her shoulders. "You left me," she said. Her voice was fractured, brittle, like something that had drowned not once but many times. "I called. You heard me." Lena trembled violently. "We don't know what happened to you," she managed. "But we're sorry. We can get help. Just let us go." The woman slowly raised her face, revealing eyes so swollen and waterlogged they barely resembled human eyes at all. Her lips were blue, cracked. Her expression was not hateful. It was pleading. "Don't leave me alone again. Not in the dark. Not in the cold." Daniel stepped in front of the others, despite every instinct screaming at him to run. "What do you want from us?" She blinked water from her lashes. "A hand." Silence thickened around them. The fog seemed to still, listening. Marco shook his head rapidly. "No. No way. Don't touch her." But the woman wasn't looking at Marco. She stared at Daniel, as if she recognized him. His chest tightened. "Why me?" Her voice softened to a whisper. "Because you tried to turn back first." Daniel didn't understand, but a strange guilt began to coil inside him, as though some part of him had failed her long before tonight. He took a step back. "We can find someone." Her head twitched sharply. "No. You must come. Now." The sea wind howled suddenly, whipping the fog around them. The terrace trembled, and the ground behind the woman shimmered. Water pooled where there had been none, a spreading, glistening layer creeping outward like a living tide. Through the water's thin surface, Daniel glimpsed something beneath. Dark shapes, silhouettes of people lying still, suspended. Marco screamed first. Faces stared up from beneath the water. Pale, motionless, eyes open. Dozens of them. Sarah clutched Lena's arm so hard her nails drew blood. "We have to run. We have to run right now." Daniel grabbed Sarah's hand and yanked her toward the path. Marco followed instantly. But Lena hesitated, frozen with horror. What if she follows? What if she? Then the woman turned her head toward Lena, jerking with a sickening crack. Lena ran. They sprinted down the trail, slipping, stumbling, lungs burning. The fog thinned, revealing faint lights far below, growing closer. The town. Safety. Daniel pushed harder. Behind them, footsteps splashed rhythmically. The sound of someone following through invisible water. "Don't stop!" Daniel yelled. Branches whipped their faces. Stones rolled underfoot. The path grew wider, then steeper, then finally leveled out near a gravel access road. Yellow light glowed just ahead, a small mountain shelter. They burst inside, slamming the door shut and bolting it. Sarah collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Marco pressed himself against the far wall, shaking. Lena stood rigid, staring at the door as though expecting it to burst inward. Daniel pressed his ear to the wood. Silence. No footsteps. No splashing. Nothing. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The fog dissipated outside, leaving only moonlit dark. By dawn, search teams found them. Hypothermic, terrified, babbling about a drowned woman on the ridge. But no footprints were found. No water. No bodies. No signs of anyone else on the trail. Except one thing. On the terrace above São Vicente, rescuers found a single damp footprint. Bare. Small. And next to it, the faint outline of 4 more, fresh, leading toward the edge. No one could explain it. Least of all Daniel, who still sometimes wakes at night hearing her whisper, "You came back for me." But he knows the truth. They never did. She's still waiting.